if you did want to do three-dimensional sticks of butter, really, I'll show you how to do three-dimensional sticks of butter, okay? And yes, I could go in and I could use my sneaky little method where I just option duplicate here. But if you do want to do butter here, I'm going to draw a pad of butter and I want to make a block of butter. So there's my little pad of butter. And I'm going to go under the effects menu and I'm going to do 3D. If you've never done 3D, sweet fun. But again, one of the reasons why I don't do the 3D, and you'll see, because of the shading and the stuff like that. So especially on rounded objects. Square objects aren't a problem. So under 3D, I have extrude and bevel, revolve, and rotate. Well, we're going to do some butter extrusion, okay? Have you ever put, clay in one of those extrusion machines that you push and it comes out all different colors? Yep, here it is. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click the preview, and here is my little dimensional butter, right there. And how I work this is I've got the extrusion depth right here, where I can go in and I can do the depth of the extrusion. So I can do a little butter bar right there. And then I can go and I can rotate this with the preview turned on so I can actually see how this is going to look and how I can rotate this object around on its axis right there. So the biggest trick to this is getting everything in the exact same XYZ perspective, because you're not just working on 2 planes, you're working on 3. And so I'd have to go in and I'd have to rotate here. And by the way, it's really tricky to go ahead and rotate this. But when I do this, I can go ahead and say, yes, here's the extrusion depth, and I've got my object, okay? So it started off as a square, and there is my 3-dimensional piece of butter. This works just fine if I'm doing 3-dimensional objects. I have the different types of shading on the side there, and what's cool about this is that I still have my original shape. So just like I did my effects on my lines and things like that, my original object is still there. It's just in the appearance panel, I have now applied an effect to it. An effect, just like in Photoshop, I can go back and edit layer by layer. So if I wanted to edit the extrude and bevel on this, I certainly could do that by just clicking on here and it calls up all of my settings. If I wanted to change the color of this, I could definitely go in and I could sample the color, and just by changing the color, it's going to change the shading on the object as well. Okay, so if I have green butter, which doesn't look good, I've got that. And of course, if I try to rotate this, you can see that by rotating this, the way you think it doesn't rotate it the way you actually think it rotates. But a couple other cool features too is that, when you go in and around the corners here, look at that. Roundy butter, square butter. You want butter that's slightly roundy corners? You can slightly roundy the corners. Look at that. That's butter. You want to do gold bullion or something? Right there. Now the tricky part is, if you're doing multiple columns when you do this, the 3D thing has a weird thing to it. If I wanted to then duplicate this one, I could just option click and drag and duplicate this, go back into my 3D bevel, and so this one was extruded to a depth of 220. I'm going to say like 350 on this one. I do this. You have to be careful because sometimes when you change the size of these things, the perspective changes ever so slightly. So if you wanted to do a 3-dimensional grid here, the extrusion depth can then be the whatever amount that you have, like I was doing millimeters to show the distance or money or time or percentages. And the extrusion depth can then become that measurement, so you have things in relative proportion to each other. And that's totally, totally cool. Once you start getting rounded items, then the rounded items start introducing a different character, a different narration to your whole point, because now you're starting to get shading in here. And the only shading that we've done has been very simple, basic, linear or dot shading, where it really isn't shading, it's literally tone on tone. We're not doing blending or gradients. So keep that in mind when you do this. It's awesome, I love it, I think it's a whole bunch of fun, and it's cool. Because, what do we use butter for? Well, we use it for donuts. And it's like, sure, I'm going to create a donut. Now, if I use my effect 3D right here, if I do an extrude, of course, what it's going to do is it's going to extrude out to, a certain depth right there. And I can also have it open-ended or closed-ended if I want to, so I can do a tube. But what happens if I want to go ahead and actually make it into a donut? That's great for doing a tube, so you can do cylinders and all that stuff. Showed you how to do a cylinder my cheater way without doing the shading, which is the reason why I show you that. And this way is awesome, but you get all the shading. So I'm going to do a revolve. And a revolve is going to go in and is going to revolve around, and watch this. So this is a donut right here. So I do the revolve around my object. And of course, I can go through and I can revolve certain sections so that I can get certain parts of my object. Okay? So the revolve, this is actually called a torus. Not a Ford Taurus, a different type of torus. So the revolve is actually revolving around the axis here as I go and do that. So if I want to do like a ring of some sort, I can do that, and then I can go ahead and of course I can rotate this. If you ever want to make macaroni and cheese, this is a great way to make noodles. I tell you, it's awesome. I'm not kidding. So you'll notice when I do that right here and I actually draw my circle, the center of the object there changes and I draw it right on my actual object. And so how do I get it so it's actually bigger here? So if I go in and I draw my object right here, and I want to do my extrude and bevel right here, do the revolve around the whole thing like this, and click on the preview, I can choose from the left edge or the right edge on how much I want to do that. Now the offset, so I'm going to do the left edge, the offset here is how far from the edge I'm going to be working here. So as I do this extrusion here, then I can get more of a center hole. So the bigger donut, the bigger the offset portion here, and the larger opening I'm going to have there, okay? So if I do want to do my macaroni noodle and I want a bigger opening for my noodle, the offset is greater, and then I pick and choose from the left or the right edge. And then of course I can rotate my noodle, and there's my macaroni. Again, this is all three-dimensional. It's more realistic, so you have shadow and shading here. Not I'm not doing a three-dimensional infographic here. I'm specifically keeping it. I want to show you this because it is ridiculously cool to go ahead and do, and it shades awesome. Another cool feature with this too is if you want to do like an open little tunnel thing, you can do this as well, and you can actually see, and it kind of creates this openness inside there because you can do capped, or you can do this as well. Yeah. One thing I want to jump back over to is this gear. Because this gear, if you ever want to do a three-dimensional gear, this rocks. So with this gear right here, I'm going to do my 3D effect with this. Effect, 3D, and this is also I'm going to do, I can do the extrude and bevel here. Preview, see that, and I can go ahead and extrude the entire object, and it looks awesome. And I can rotate this around. I know, crazy, isn't it? So I can actually have the gears, and if I create other gears, it's going to render, and I can actually put these together and they actually fit, okay? So I can go through and I can say make it clear or make it a cap as well, and it's like, wow, that is so cool. That's not the cool part. The cool part is this. Now, what I want to do is these gears have really sharp edges. I'm going to go into my extrude and bevel here, and I do want to extrude it here, but I also want to go ahead, instead of having flat edges of my gears, I want to go ahead and lop off the corners of my gears ever so slightly. So now I begin to put an intricate face on those gears by controlling the bevel here. So I do a little seesaw one here, and it takes an awful lot. Self-intersection, too complex. Right there. So you do that, and I can actually change the bevel to get this ridiculously wacky, crazy, funky stuff on here. It's like, no way. Oh yeah. I mean, you can change absolutely anything. So jumping back to this one, where we had just our simple noodle here, and I get the 3D here, and I do that, say, the 3D isn't going to do it. I'll need to do the extrude, so I'm going to do my star, and I'll do my 3D extrude here, and bevel. So I extrude this, preview this whole thing, and I put a little bevel on there, like a little jaggy bevel. Check that out. It actually creates this little jaggy bevel thing. No way. So that saw blade that I had done, that little saw blade that's right here, that's the coolest little jaggy bevel thing. Where is it? Oh yeah, right there. Yep. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the teeth of Bertha, the tunnel boring machine. Yeah, why not? Okay, there it is. Or you want a little squirrel cage fan or something, that's probably a little bit too much. Okay, there it is. So there it is. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my little jaggy thing Watch that. Look at that. Look at that. No way. I mean, seriously, okay? So you can create some really awesome graphics here. I know this is getting a little bit outside the infographic thing, but seriously, you know, you want to do a little abrasion wheel? Not a problem, you know, stick a little torus through there and go ahead and whatever. But that is literally, I mean, we started out with this with a singular circle with my little moon that I cut in half. I rotated it all around the center, put it all together, extruded and beveled the whole thing, and that's what I end up with. I know. And that's just like off the hook amazing, you know? Because then I can go ahead and I can say, okay, this goes right here onto that shaft, and now we've got our little drive belt with our, you know, no way. No way. But since we're doing two-dimensional graphics here, we kind of are stuck with that. But I just want to show you the 3D thing. But there's one last thing that's even more awesome. Yes, Jim?
Just a quick question before you move along. So you had mentioned yesterday that you didn't prefer mixing 3D icons like this with 2D icons. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Do you ever do a little of both, or is it really just sort of one or the other?
The way I'm going to mix 2D and 3D icons is if the client specifically wants a look and feel, the product will be 3D, and then all the information explaining it will be 2D. So that I don't go through and I make some icons 3D, some icons 2D, you know, and then mix things in there. If the product's going to be the same, all the products are going to be the same. And then all the descriptors are going to be the same as well. Because there are some times that the clients will want everything in dimension. So not only will they have something like this, but they may take something like this from here. Let me go ahead and I'm going to grab this. And I'm just going to grab something that has type on it here. And I can put this in right there. And I may put my type in here. And they may say, you know, abrasion wheel, and we want to do something like this. I'm going to go through and I'm going to make this as simple as possible. But if I'm creating a full-on, the whole thing three-dimensional, everything's going to be three-dimensional. So then this is then going to go and be sheared right here to fit along this axis right here so that I keep that exact same feel with what I'm doing. So then all of my copy that goes right here, and I have to make sure I get the exact right axis here as I do this, then everything's going to be here so that now what I'm doing is, you know, 21.5 inches by, you know, 11.6 inches, you know, course, thing, blah, 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 whatever it may be. And then this can go right there. So in that case, if everything's going to be 3D and they wanted something like this, that can be really, really cool. Yeah. So, but, and this type is still editable, so you can do that. Biggest thing is making sure that everything fits on that exact angle. Slightly off and you just get this weird kind of, you know, But that can be awesome.
Cool, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So there's our quick little venture into 3D here. Ridiculously awesome. But I have to show you one last thing. Great for environmental graphics. You ever want to do a little tree? Lego used to have little trees like this. I'm going to show you a great little tree. Triangle. Oh my gosh, isn't that great? Nope, not yet. There's my tree. And then with my tree, I'm actually going to take it and I'm going to do some lines here right from the middle. And these lines are going to have a stroke on them. And they're going to have rounded ends. And I'm going to create a tree. But nothing like you even think of a tree is going to be created. Okay? Duplicate, 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 right there. Okay. This needs to extend beyond the end. That needs to extend beyond the end. These two can go away. Now I need to take all of my objects here. I need to outline the path. So I get that. Then I need to take everything minus the front. Boom. There's my little tree. I'm going to cut the whole thing in half. And yes, I'm going to use the pen tool for this. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to come right over here until it intersects. I'm going to close it up. Close it up. There we go. I'm going to make it green just because I want my tree to be green. There's my tree. Okay? I know. Doesn't look like a tree. Effect, 3D, revolve. Ready? There's my tree. I know. Awesome, huh? You want to go ahead and see that? There you go. There's my little tree. You can see the whole thing. Yep, there it is. Look at that little tree. That's the reason why I didn't run those all the way in. I kind of ran them at an angle. So when you see that tree right there, doesn't that look like a tree? That's a pretty awesome infographic for a tree, especially if you're going to be using 3 dimensions. I mean, it's like, no way. Yeah, so there it is. And all I did was create that basic shape. You can see the basic shape here. It's nothing more than that. Right there, did that basic shape. Show you one last thing with doing a vase here. This is always fun when we do a vase, something like this. You know, there's my vase right there. And I want to make that vase be extruded and revolved. So effect, 3D, revolve. And of course, if I go through and do that, that's what I get. And of course, I can do the offset so that it's going to create a much larger vase or a pot right there. Of course, doing it from the right edge here is going to give a totally different effect because it does it from the right edge. This is from the left edge right there. And you can do the offset there. There it is. You want to see inside? Look inside. Look inside. Look at that. There we go. Cool. I know. It's just ridiculous. And there it is, the basic shape. Cool thing with this is if you edit this basic shape, it edits the entire thing right there. I round the corner on that thing, yep, rounded corner on the edge right there. Cool. I decide that I'm going to go ahead and add more to it so that it comes up. Oh, look, little lip right there. Okay, little double lip. Okay, again, okay, another little lip. And it's just that basic shape. I mean, see why I have so much fun? Because it is. I know. I think we need to go ahead and take these, scale these down, and throw these on the other page here. Oop. This is what happens when you scale things down. You got to scale things down in the actual thing because now it scaled it all down, but all the renderings were kind of weird. But there we go. I'm going to copy this one. We're going to put it back over into this one right here so we can throw it in there. There we go. My nice little tree. Hey, this could be a little Christmas tree grinder upper.